Y- You know, they say the only people who never argue are roommates in a graveyard. But when it comes to relationships, it's a whole different ballgame. In my younger years, I was a bit of a verbal gladiator. You see, back in high school, we had these verbal showdowns we fondly referred to as cut fights. They were amicable exchanges of witticisms and put downs between the boys, and I held my ground pretty well. There were a few times where I almost got a punch to the face, mainly because I didn't realize that mothers were a no-go area for jokes. Later, when I moved on to college, I took on the art of debate. Now, while my grades were nothing to write home about, I held my own in the debating arena, even against the smartest, straight students. I am convinced that even William F. Buckley Jr. would have a run for his money going toe-to-toe with me on the subject of women. But let's pivot a bit. I have a confession to make. Despite my impressive record in verbal duels, I have been beaten a staggering 822 times. And where, you may ask, did this master of debate meet his match? In the boxing ring of love, of course. The hard truth is, I have never won an argument against an African woman. She doesn't fight fair or debate logically, but before you call me a chauvinist, let me clarify. This isn't about gender superiority. It's about the nature of arguments in relationships. It's about understanding that fair fighting isn't always the name of the game. And sometimes the challenges we face in these arguments are more about communication and understanding than they are about winning or losing. The truth is, I have never beaten the African female in an argument. She doesn't fight fair or debate logically. Now, if you thought all arguments were created equal, allow me to introduce you to the naggers. Naggers, the ultimate debaters in the arena of relationships. They are relentless, persistent, and often unyielding. They are the marathon runners of disputes, the heavyweight champions of quarreling. And let me tell you, going up against a nagger can feel like trying to push a boulder uphill in a snowstorm with a feather. Naggers have an uncanny ability to turn a minor disagreement into a epic battle of wits. They can take a simple "I forgot to take out the trash" and turn it into a three-act play, complete with a dramatic climax and an emotionally charged denouement. And just when you think the final curtain has fallen, they're ready for an encore. Now you might be thinking, well, I'm a good debater. I can handle a nagger. But here's the thing. Naggers don't play by the usual rules of debate. They don't stick to the point. They don't concede when they're wrong, and they don't let you have the last word. It's like trying to play chess with someone who keeps changing the rules and has armed the pawns. So how do you deal with a nagger? Well, the first rule of Nagger Club is don't engage. That's right, don't even step into the ring. Remember, it takes two to tango, or in this case, to argue. If you don't fit into the argument, it starves and eventually dies out. But what if you can't help but respond? Well, then you might want to consider taking a class in advanced anger control. Trust me, it'll be worth it. You'll learn how to stay calm under pressure, how to respond without escalating the situation, and most importantly, how to exit the argument gracefully. So in the grand scheme of things, always remember that not all arguments are created equal. And if you're planning to marry a nagger, well, you might want to consider a class in advanced anger control. Have you ever heard couples say they argue just like everyone else? Don't fall for this half-truth. Let's debunk this myth that all couples argue in the same way. It's akin to saying all meals taste the same, or all songs sound alike. Clearly that's not the case, right? Now picture these two individuals, each with their unique personalities, backgrounds, and ways of expressing themselves. They come together in a relationship, and suddenly they're supposed to argue in the same way as everyone else. It's a bit of a stretch, don't you think? Here's the truth. Not all couples engage in arguments in the same manner. Some couples, believe it or not, actually talk things out calmly. Imagine that. A disagreement that doesn't end in slammed doors or shattered dishes. These are the couples where both parties have a high interest level in each other. They genuinely care about the other person's thoughts and feelings. They're not just waiting for their turn to speak. They're actually listening. Then there's flexibility. These couples understand that their partner may have a different perspective. They're open to that. They don't see it as a threat, but rather as an opportunity to learn and grow together. They're willing to bend a little, to meet in the middle. And then there's the giving aspect. These couples are not just taking. They're not just focused on what they want or need. They're also considering their partner's desires and needs. They're willing to give, sometimes even at the cost of their own comfort. So the next time you hear someone say, all couples argue in the same way, remember this conversation. Remember that it's not really about the argument itself, but how the argument is handled. It's about bringing empathy, flexibility, and generosity to the table. It takes two to argue, so don't argue. She cannot force you to answer back. It's not about winning or losing. It's about understanding and growing together. It's about choosing peace over being right. Choose wisely, my friends. Picture this. Living with someone who loves to humiliate and verbally assault, believing that the best communication is a knockdown, drag-out fight. It's a scenario that holds the power to drain the joy out of life, transforming a love-filled relationship into an emotional battlefield. The negative impacts of engaging in such hostile arguments are manifold. They inflict emotional wounds, erode trust, and create a gulf of resentment. These damaging effects are not just confined to the arguing individuals, but extend to everyone around them, creating a toxic environment that is far from conducive to growth and happiness. Arguing in this manner is a destructive cycle, a dance of domination where one seeks to overpower the other, not through reason or logic, but through decibels and degradation. It's a battle where even if you win, you lose, because the cost of victory is the harmony and mutual respect that forms the bedrock of any successful relationship. Let's shift our focus from winning arguments to winning hearts. The key to a successful relationship is not improving yourself right, but improving your love for each other. It's about understanding and accepting each other's perspectives, even if they differ from our own. Communication in relationships should be a bridge, not a battleground. It should foster understanding, not animosity. It should be a dialogue, not a diatribe. It's about listening, not just with your ears, but with your heart. It's about speaking, not just with your mouth, but with your actions. It's about mutual respect, not mutual recrimination. So here's the winning strategy. Don't argue. When you feel an argument brewing, take a moment, breathe, listen, seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Choose your battles wisely, because not every disagreement is worth an argument. And always remember, the goal of communication in a relationship is not to win an argument, but to resolve a conflict. So the next time you find yourself on the precipice of an argument, remember this. Women win all the arguments all the time, so don't argue in the first place. Just you. So, warriors, what have we learned today? We've journeyed through the battlegrounds of love, exploring the art of argument in relationships. It's a vast terrain filled with challenges and obstacles, but also opportunities for growth and understanding. We've seen that arguments are not simply about who's right or wrong, but rather they're about communication, understanding, and respect. We've discovered that some individuals, the naggers, are particularly adept at the art of argument. They're relentless, persistent, and often their words can feel like a barrage of javelins. But remember, warriors, engaging with a nagger doesn't mean you have to enter the boxing ring. Sometimes, the most effective strategy is to step back, to listen, and to respond with calmness and control. We've debunked the myth of universal arguments, the false belief that all couples argue and fight in the same way. The reality is far more nuanced. Some couples do indeed argue, but others engage in a more peaceful dialogue, particularly those where both parties are flexible, giving, and hold a high level of interest in each other. The winning strategy we've explored is a simple one, yet it's often the hardest to implement. Don't argue. It's a strategy that requires self-restraint and discipline. It takes immense strength to hold back, to listen, and to respond with kindness and understanding, especially when emotions are running high. But in doing so, you create a space for communication that's free from hostility and resentment. So as we wrap up today's exploration, let's remember that arguments in relationships are not potasa abasasaba battlefield to be conquered, but a dance to be navigated with grace and respect. It's about understanding, not winning. It's about listening, not speaking. And most importantly, it's about love, not war. Remember, stay charming, stay committed, and most importantly, have fun.